Hi, I'd like to share with you today on the topic of money intuition. Money intuition. Now, intuition is like a muscle. If you use it, it grows. If you don't use it, it atrophies. You have to use it for it to grow. So, like any other skill, if you use your money intuition, it increases. If you don't use it, it decreases. I'd really encourage you to start tuning into messages from the environment, from your body, from your subconscious that have to do with money. And as you tune into those things and act on those little intuitive nudges, you will increase your money intuition. I'll give you one funny example from my own life. Around 2004, I was working in my publishing consulting business. I was doing fairly well in my business, and I was paying the bills, saving a little bit of money every month, and I was pretty content with where I was. One day, I was in my office, and I had this intuitive urge, this little strong urge to go to Starbucks and buy a cup of coffee. Now, I thought that's ridiculous. The coffee at Starbucks will cost me $2. If I can go to my own kitchen, it'll cost me a quarter. But that little intuitive voice said, go to Starbucks, buy a cup of coffee. So I got in my car, drove downtown, and went to Starbucks. Now, Starbucks happened to be inside a Barnes & Noble bookstore. So after getting my coffee, I walked to the bookstore. In the bookstore, there was one table that just drew me magnetically to it. On that table, there was one book, and only one, that just seemed to have flashing lights around it. So I picked up the book, began to read the book. It was a really good book, bought the book, brought it home, and began to act on the advice in that book. That book was called America's Bubble Economy. America's Bubble Economy, about how we were in this giant property bubble, how we were in this huge current account bubble, how government spending was exploding at that time. So all of these bubbles, interrelated bubbles, were all happening at the same time. And the authors say, we don't know which bubble will pop or when, but at some point, one bubble will pop, and that may bring all the other bubbles along with it. So you better be hoarding cash, making money and saving that money in various investment vehicles, so when the crash comes, you're prepared. When the bubble pops, you're ready. So I began to do just that. I began to save like crazy. I increased my work hours, I increased my client commitments, and I saved more and more and more money. When the crash finally came, about half of all the companies doing what I was doing in California where I live, about half of all the companies went out of business. They could not survive the crash. Fortunately, I could not only survive the crash, I had this cash cushion that allowed me to write it out and make some investments during the crash. But again, it was all due to listening to my money intuition. So ask yourself, what is your money intuition telling you? Is it telling you to open that retirement account? Is it telling you to read that book? Is it telling you to check into that investment? Is it telling you to perhaps pull back from something you do or lean in to something else you do? Listen for those nudges. They might be really irrational, like mine to go to Starbucks and buy a cup of coffee. But if you follow them, even though they seem irrational, eventually you'll see that they can pay off. So get in the habit of strengthening your money intuition muscle, and you might surprise yourself by how well you do.